Hello, everyone, and welcome to another NintendoFuse Game Chat. Today, we're talking all about Sam & Max, the Devil's Playhouse for the Nintendo Switch. So, today I'm joined by Greg, and we are going to be talking all about Sam & Max, the Devil's Playhouse, which is the third of the Telltale Games trilogy of Sam & Max titles. This was released on August 14th, 2024 on the Switch by Skunkabe Games. This originally released, earlier on other systems, but this is like the remaster. And full disclosure, they did provide, or the PR company did provide us review codes, so thank you very much for those. This, as the third entry, is not recommended to start the Sam & Max games. We do have reviews for the other two. But if you played the other two, this is the final adventure that these versions of the characters go on. And they really pull out all the stops. They use everything they've learned from the first two games and then some. And the big mechanic in this one is toys, the toys of power, which allow you to do a lot more than you originally were able to do in the first two games. So, Greg, why don't you tell us your experience with Sam & Max, The Devil's Playhouse?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I mean, as we discussed with the second edition, this one builds right off of pretty much where the story left off at the end of the second game. So if you haven't obviously seen that, there might be some small spoiler stuff here, but this one dives deep into, as Barry said, with the Toys of Power. So the very first episode kind of gives you a little tidbit of each of the different pieces, like teleportation. You can make yourself pretty much transform into certain objects and everything using like this rhinoplasty type ability, and then there's like a few other different abilities that you kind of use like throughout, and that just kind of helps you like kind of progress like the story, and also kind of adds into some of the options you have to do while trying to solve the adventure. I did notice there was a game update that I think they might have made a change since like the when I initially downloaded it, and I think it might have added in the hint system, and I think that was definitely very appreciated because when I was playing this one this time around, I was able to use like the hint system, and it kind of has your characters indicate to you if you are like on the correct screen, or like, oh, let's go check out to see what like Sybil has to say or something, and then so it kind of just keeps telling you to go back to a certain screen if you kind of did do everything you needed to do on that particular screen. So I did turn on the hint system because I was greatly in need of that after the first two games. So I believe that's like a newer feature that they just added in and probably patched it into all three games based on our discussions here. So that was definitely very appreciated to even kind of see where to kind of get some hints on where to go. I did use like a guide to kind of fully complete the story, but having that there's still like a setting you can adjust how frequent they tell you where to go or whatever, or like how rare they will bring up that ability if you want to try to figure it out all for yourself. So pretty much it's mostly the story that's the big piece here. It's really interesting the way that they kind of took the characters to kind of locate the toy box. And then you kind of in the second episode you kind of dive into the history of the toy box, where you use like their great grandparent or like either their grandparents or great grandparents on when they first find like the box of toys, and then also like kind of the history of how the mole people kind of guard it and everything, and then it dives in deeper from there where Max gets his brain taken right out of his body to power the Skunk and Egg ship, and then then it's a journey to restore Max's brain back to his body, and then it kind of just like the penultimate thing of like Max, they destroy like the Toys of Power, but then Max still gets corrupted with psychic powers, and you have to kind of he becomes like a giga-sized giant like a creature that you have to kind of stop him from destroying pretty much the city. And I really liked the stories this time around. I thought they were definitely very creative and very interesting takes. I really especially like the third episode where they dive into with the brain being taken out of Max's body, and then you kind of put like this old pharaoh's like brain inside, and then he kind of creates an alternate reality. So that was really really cool the way they kind of even spun that in, and then like Sam doesn't even realize that he was in an alternate reality. So like I don't know. I thought the writing was super creative this time around, and they really took the direction a lot of different aspects they would might not even expect. The main downside I thought with the story, at least, is they kind of cut out the character Bosco. So he kind of played a lot in the very first season, like having a store and everything, and then the second one he was kind of somewhat sidelined after like the first few episodes, and then they had him just take a trip to Vegas, and then pretty much he was pretty much absent from the entire this entire time around, and more focused on his mom that became a more prominent character in the later half of season two. So it was kind of disheartening to see a good character like that kind of getting sidelined and not have any involvement. Um, but I guess other than that, it was pretty much the standard kind of flair of gameplay. You pretty much just explore around, and then you interact with objects in different ways. You find a few things to pick up, and then you have the additional abilities of the Max's powers to also kind of at your arsenal to try to know what kind of things you're either copying to or teleporting to directly to in order to progress the story and solve other puzzles.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that they did that to Bosco and Sybil too into the end. But
Yep.
they wrote her out for a bit, but she came back. But I agree with you. I think the writing was even better. I thought the toy mechanic was weird at first. It took me a bit to get used to it, but I thought it was very like it was used very cleverly. Nothing was really too far fetched, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. For me, my favorite episode was the second. I thought the second was brilliant. I love the whole mechanic with the movie. We have the different reels, and you're playing through this like Indiana Jones style movie, and you have like before the adventure, on the way to the adventure, during the adventure, and you have to bounce between them. I thought that was brilliantly done with the great grandparents. I thought that was really cool, and it definitely took me by surprise. Uh, it was just you figure after 3 games, you're like, are they out of ideas? Because a lot of times it happens, and I felt like no, they weren't. Like they brought new ideas to the table, and even the final episode with him with Max all giant, and you're going around the city and you're destroying things, and you know you have to go up and down Max's body and make it from the inside, and I thought that was really interesting, and how you trick him, and I thought that was it was one of those things where they subverted my expectations in the best possible way. And I played this right after I played the first 2 games. So it was like back to back to back marathon. So the third one had a little bit of a jarring to get used to, like the toy mechanic, because it was vastly different than the first two. But, Skunkabe I thought was a really cool villain. And it was neat that they brought in a brand new villain in this. And they tied everything together. I think they tied everything together well. And the voice acting is superb. It's the same cast, and I think this is a really nice bookend. Uh, Anything else you want to add in from your experience, Greg?
At least when I was playing the very final episode, it almost sounded like Sam's voice was slightly different. So I was almost looking in the credits to see if it was just like a way that like the lines were read, or if they somehow had to pull in a different voice actor. But to me, at least, it sounded a little bit different the way that Sam sounded from in the very final like episode or two than even from like the earlier like the first two on this version too. So I don't know if it was just the way the actor had read the lines or if there was some sort of type of change there. But that was like the main thing that I noticed. It didn't really like take subtract from anything. It still got Sam's voice lines and all his great glory and everything. But it did. I did notice at least a difference in like I guess the quality maybe, unless it's just the way it was coming through or something. But other than that, I thought it was great that have all the favorite characters back, and they even had like Abe Lincoln had like a few lines in like the final episode as well too when Sybil returned, and so I mean pretty much everything just kind of sounded and fit well with like each other. And as you said, the Skunk and Ape made a really good villain this time around too, and pretty much it was different than the previous 2 games that you've both had different penultimate villains as well too. So they didn't really just continue on like one villain through the entire series.
So I just did a quick check, and it was the same voice actor for Sam throughout the whole thing. So it could have just been the way he read the lines, but it was him. And yeah, I thought like I said, they upped the ante in all this every single episode. Um, I still feel like the second one was my favorite, but not by much. Like, and I feel like the more I let the Devil's Playhouse uh, digest, the better I enjoyed it. Like it was just one of those where it got better over time. Just thinking about it, it was more clever. It really had some fun stuff. So if you're interested, if you like point and click, if you like adventure games, if this sounds up your alley, and specifically if you enjoyed the first two Sam and Max games, this game is available right now in two ways you can get it. One, you can get it digitally, 19.99 right now on the eShop. You could also get the complete trilogy. All three games is $45, so you save 15 bucks by getting it that way. And I think if you're remotely interested in the Devil's Playhouse, you're probably interested in the other two. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to buy it, go that way. But at 20 bucks or $15 if you want to break it down in the bundle, Greg, thoughts at the end of the day, is this worth it at that price? Wait for a sale. What do you think?
See, this is where I kind of drew the comparison even in the second episode. I feel like if you're gonna like this kind of style game, then it's easy to want to get the entire set, and you want pretty much the entire story and to pretty much experience it all because it really just builds on things and pretty much the characters kind of previously reference stuff that happened in even the previous two games. Even so, I think as a standalone game, I almost felt like I enjoyed the gameplay of the second one a little bit like it's a little bit stronger than this one, even as you had said, and like possibly even the story arc with the time travel stuff being a little bit better in that one specifically. But again, if you're into this style of game, you're probably going to enjoy all three, and I think that's where the trilogy would be make the most sense to get them all together. I don't. It's kind of hard to recommend a third entry or even the second entry as above the first entry without enjoying like the entire story like pretty much through. So I found the best way is pretty much just to play them in order and be able to just enjoy the entire set together. Where I have a stronger feel like a recommendation to get the entire series if you like this kind of style game. But if you're just getting one, then I would almost recommend you just want to start with the first one because that's kind of where it all takes place, and then you can kind of see if you do like it, and then therefore you want to pick up two and three from there. So it's kind of hard to recommend like ones in the middle or even at the end of the entire saga.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you enjoy these type of games, $45 is a steal. These are like you have to figure they treat each of these as TV show seasons. So this is like the third season of a show, 5 episodes, and you don't usually start on the third season. Usually, you watch from the first season onwards. So you would go with the trilogy, or like Greg said, if you're going to get one game, probably get the first. That being said, while this isn't my favorite of the trilogy, I do think it is probably the most well polished, and it is definitely the most ambitious. Even though the second one, maybe my favorite, it has the time travel elements. I feel the Toys of Power do add a lot of ambition because of the things you can do, and it almost feels kind of crazier. And like I said, that second episode for me personally, brilliant. I loved the idea of going between the movie reels and playing out of order and seeing the adventure unfold. I thought that was just a really great episode. So there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of gameplay. You're getting your bang for your buck. Like these are not quick games. A lot of fun to be had. And I do again want to thank the PR agency for Skunkabe Games for providing us review codes. This did come out August 14th of 2024, so it is available now. Skunkabe Games did the remaster. Originally, these were done by Telltale, and Skunkabe is made up of Telltale employees. So it's great to see them be able to bring these games back. So that's our verdict on Sam and Max: The Devil's Playhouse. If you enjoy reviews like this, as well as our biweekly podcast, industry interviews, and a bunch of other content, especially Nintendo-related content, please subscribe right now below here on YouTube, as well as go to NintendoFuse.com and check out our other videos. And for everybody
Not
else out there, have yourself a wonderful day.